Solid waste management is one of the most pressing environmental challenges faced by developing countries. With a projected population of over 200 million, Nigeria produces large volumes of solid waste, out of which less than 20% is collected through a formal system. The existing solid waste management system is affected by economic, institutional, legislative, technical, and operational constraints. The ineffective management of increasing amounts of solid waste has become a national crisis in Nigeria. With the rapid expansion of cities and towns, growing piles of garbage pose serious threats to public health, environment, and urban planning. To address these challenges, national policy on solid waste management was enacted into law by the federal government of Nigeria in 2020. Today, we will be looking at solid waste management in its entirety, the specific objectives of the solid waste management policy, one after the other. I am Lydia Odijiochi. Thank you for joining us. On the overall, the solid waste management policy goal is to protect human health, enable clean environments and sustainable development through an integrated national framework for environmentally sound solid waste practice across Nigeria. We have an expert in this area who will educate us and give us deep insight on solid waste management. Before I introduce my guest, here is the news update.
The National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies NIPSS has organized a capacity-building workshop for staff on economic policy and sustainable economic development. The workshop, which took place at the Political Parties Leadership and Policy Development Center Auditorium in the Institute, is expected to keep staff updated with intentional leadership and sustainable development skills.
Once people are elected leaders, we worship them as gods. We don't see them as our servants. The reasons we elected them is so that they will serve us, but we are the ones serving them. NIPSS is foremost think tank of Nigeria, sees the unique opportunity and advantage to impress on the PSLC participants the issues of leadership, the issues of policy implementation, and the issue of their becoming the drivers of the proper growth curriculum.
Professor Ishmael Ogburo from the Department of Economics, University of Jos, who was the facilitator of the training, said that the topic is timely and when fully incorporated into the curriculum of the policy strategy and leadership courses as planned, it will challenge the participants to create a sustainable development planned mindset for national sustainable development.
Everything rises and falls on leadership. No more lamentations. It is time for action and revelations. Can't we do it? Yes, we can. It is our responsibility to so do.
According to him, no nation develops without leadership development. Training our leaders will enable them bring out transformation and sustainable plans for the country.
I am expecting that at the end of the course, even though short period of time, we should be able to impact the participants, that we have several of them living, if not all, to begin to make impacts wherever they are as far as policies that they have to implement are concerned.
Participants at the workshop thanked the management for availing staff the training, which they say is timely and necessary to build capacities towards good leadership for the country. Speaking to NIPSS Policy TV, Professor Ishmael Ogburo said that the expected outcome of the training is to ensure that participants of policy strategy and leadership courses are trained on sustainable development goals to enable them apply it in their various endeavors.
Expected outcome of the training, first, for Nigeria to effectively key into the sustainable economic development, which is an upgrade in the sense of the sustainable development goals to which Nigeria is a signatory. The essence of the training is to ensure that participants to the policy, strategy, and leadership course are trained and at the end of the day properly imbibe the culture of ensuring that wherever they find themselves as policy implementers, policy people, they are able to effectively follow through with policies and ensure that development spreads. Now, the idea is for people to be moved from the present level that they are to a better level, a higher level, an advanced level of development.
The training ended with an interactive session where questions were addressed by the facilitator. Nigeria needs to develop homegrown development goals by focusing on reputable and selfless leaders for transformation and sustainable development.
Thank you for staying. Today, we will also be examining the scorecard of the solid waste management policy through its specific objectives: improve public health and environmental protection, develop an integrated waste management system, ensure proper management of hazardous wastes, clarify roles and jurisdictions, develop sustainable financing mechanisms, build capacity through training and public awareness, monitoring, data collection, and enforcement. Our special guest is the Director General, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS, Professor Ayo Omotayo. We will be joining him in a moment. Stay with us. Our very special guest, who is an expert in this area of solid waste management, is none other than the Director General, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Professor Ayo Omotayo. Thank you for joining us on this conversation, sir.
Thank you.
Now, sir, to improve public health and environmental protection is the core objective of this policy. Now, can you tell Nigerians how this policy intends to mitigate the negative public health and environmental impact on the public?
Okay, thank you very much. First, we must distinguish between environmental public health and waste management issues. Even though waste management issues impacts on the environmental public health. So for us as Nigerians, at national level, we do not have a nationally coordinated law guiding the way we manage our environment. Most of what we do are done at the level of the state, where the states have different solid waste management laws and rules. But as a nation, we are yet to have a nationally coordinated solid waste management policies. But generally, we subscribe to the 5 R's, which conceptually refers to reducing waste. We call it reduce, refusing to generate waste, refuse. We also have reuse, that means use some other materials that can be reused again. Then 4, we say reform. And then you also have, which is the 5th one now, say reform the way we use the waste. So for us in Nigeria, it's about the 5 R's. And then we believe that if you refuse to generate waste, there won't be waste in the first place. Okay, let's assume that you have actually generated the waste. Then you can recycle some of the materials that have been used in order to ensure that before something becomes waste, it must have been used over and over again. And then we see redesign. There are a few things that once you use it in a form, you can redesign it and use it in another form to slow down the waste generating process. And when we say refuse, if you notice that anything can lead to unnecessary waste generation, you refuse to consume that particular product. Take, for example, when we go to, I've advocated it 7 years ago. I said, when you go to the fast food joints, why do you take their styroplastics? Go with your plate, get served, carry your plate back home and wash your plate. If you must eat there, if you don't have to eat there, go with your food flask. So that is an example of refusing to generate waste. And every individual has a responsibility to ensure that we do not unnecessarily generate waste. There is no way human beings will not generate waste. But what we are appealing to us for is, let us generate waste responsibly. Let us generate waste only when it has become impossible not to generate waste. Of course, when we eventually generate waste, we can find ways and means of ensuring that we dispose of our waste in ways and manner that does not impact negatively on our environment. And one thing I think we should also take into cognizance is that there are different kinds of wastes. We have domestic waste, because when we say solid waste, a lot of waste from our homes that are solid are domestic waste. We also now have from that electronic waste materials. Your phones you don't want anymore, your televisions you don't want anymore. There are electronic waste materials that have to be disposed in a specialized way. And of course, you have medical waste. Very minor part of what we generate in our homes are medical waste, but all over the places, the hospitals and all of them, we have medical waste that also we have to take special care to dispose of. So all of these things have to be taken into cognizance when we talk of waste management. But like I said, we need a nationally coordinated policy on waste management.
When are we going to realize that having a nationally coordinated policy, when will that come to life?
Well,
reality?
it behoves on people like us, those of us who are experts in environmental matters, to sit down and assess the nature of the waste we generate. 2-3 years back, before I came on this job, I was on 2 different researches looking at the nature of waste generated at different places in Lagos. You found that the waste that is generated around certain areas are different from what they generate in other areas. So just as we're doing that micro study over Lagos, we need to do that kind of studies all over Nigeria too, so that you come up with something that can address the specific problem of waste as we have them in different parts of Nigeria. Nigeria is not an homogeneous society. We have different idiosyncrasies and we generate different kinds of waste. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration if we seek to have a nationally coordinated policy on waste management.
The absence of adequate laws and weak enforcement of available laws, regulations, and applicable sanctions to achieve reforms to help address the policy issues have remained a huge challenge. What would be your take on this?
It behoves on people like us, those of us who are experts in environmental matters, to sit down and assess the nature of the waste we generate. 2-3 years back, before I came on this job, I was on 2 different researches looking at the nature of waste generated at different places in Lagos. You found that the waste that is generated around certain areas are different from what they generate in other areas. So just as we're doing that micro study over Lagos, we need to do that kind of studies all over Nigeria too, so that you come up with something that can address the specific problem of waste as we have them in different parts of Nigeria. Nigeria is not an homogeneous society. We have different idiosyncrasies and we generate different kinds of waste. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration if we seek to have a nationally coordinated policy on waste management.
Some Nigerians have identified inadequate solid waste infrastructure as a major issue confronting the implementation of the policy or solid waste management across the country. How would you react to this?
Yeah, well, we have NIPSS at the national level that is supposed to look at waste generation, but their major focus has been on industrial waste. And I think to a large extent they've done a good job ensuring that industries don't get away with murder. I say get away with murder, that is, you just dispose all your industrial waste in our rivers, on the land, and nobody takes care of them. So to a large extent, they impose fines on companies that do not follow the rules, and then they also ensure compliance with cleaning of the waste before they are let into whatever medium they want to use to finally dispose of it. But be that as it may, there is still the need for more work to be done by NIPSS to ensure that we keep our environment safe, especially those industrial areas where they concentrate mainly on. As you can see, we do not have strong enforcement rules in residential areas, basically because of the way Nigerians are, and of course at this time of strong economic hardship, there's just very little enforcement you can do. People have a lot of complaints against government, and they're telling you that at this time their problem is not about waste generation. They are even still looking towards how to make ends meet. So NIPSS has done a lot of work. They used to be FEPA, and I think since 1979 thereabout, they've been doing a good job before they translated into NIPSS. But I still feel that they can do more. But so far, so good, they have not done badly.
Now, Digi, in what ways would you say coordination and overlapping of functions among institutions? Yes, you've been talking about institutions. Institutions like ministries of health and environment. How have these affected the realization of solid waste management?
I mentioned that NIPSS exists, and I've told you that they are not doing badly. We can enforce more strongly our laws. But what we should be doing at this time is to really categorize our waste into those ones that Adelia mentioned. Let's look at industrial waste that actually can lead to wide-scale pollution. NIPSS is covering that very well at a national level. Of course, their functions overlap with that of the states at that level, because I know that a few of the states also have almost the same laws that we have at that national level on industrial waste. So sometimes I know there will be collision points, but that is well taken care of because we talk of large-scale pollution. That law is well taken care of. What may not be strong enough is enforcement. And when the enforcement is not strong enough, not because they don't want it to be strong, but like I've told you, at the state level, states always collide with the federal as to who is supposed to enforce the law or demand for fines where there has been an infringement. That's why I said we need a nationally coordinated law. What do you want states to focus on? What do you want the federal to focus on? As it is, NIPSS is basically more active in Abuja because this is where no state can also claim a counter power over what they are supposed to be doing. So, and for me, given that we are a federal state, we could reform these laws to look at scale. If you look at scale, you can then be able to say, oh, this happens, let at the national level have necessary enforcing these ones if it is at this particular scale, and at the subnational state levels and the rest, let's say at this scale, this is what they are supposed to be doing. That is for the category that has to do with, that can lead to wide-scale pollution. But for domestic waste generation, we can leave that to local governments to enforce those rules, and that even still speaks to the issue of scale. Then at the state level, let's say medium scale level, you can have states make laws, especially on medically generated waste, that local governments may not have the expertise to handle. I think federal government should allow at the state level laws be made for medical waste handling. And then let's leave it at that here.
Now, sir, in your own view, how would you want to rate funding of solid waste management and the level of technologies available for its implementation?
Well, you are narrowing it down to solid waste. It is not only in solid waste that we have not done enough R&D. R&D has always been a problem of developing countries. We don't put money on R&D. We need individuals, much more than government, to come up with suggestions and privately even act, do the research, and then there are a lot of organizations out there that we don't talk to that may fund some of our researches. And if those of us in the areas of sustainable development are aggressive enough, as long as we have new concepts, new ideas, money will chase those concepts and those ideas. The problem we have at our own level is that we feel, oh, government is supposed to do it. Who is government? It is the researchers. It is the students of waste management studies that are supposed to come up with innovations. And of course, you can go to government and say, I have these innovations, let us try and execute those things. For me, as an expert, personally, I feel I've not even done enough in terms of innovating, but I know that there are a lot of innovations that can be carried out if we follow through on the outcomes of our researches. And I'm sure if we're able to carry out advocacy, encourage the younger ones, they also have a whole lot of ideas as to how we can manage our solid waste better. We need a revolution in the area of solid waste management. The traditional system of pack and go to the refuse dump and all those sites should be a thing of the past. We should substantially reduce our waste. I look forward to a policy that gives timeline and allocates reduction volumes to what we do at our different homes. But first, we must start with semi-sorting our waste from the homes. That is the beginning of it. Individuals, households must all participate. And if they are willing to participate, I'm sure it's not going to be difficult for government policies to percolate down to the grassroots. It starts with every household believing that Definitely. They can semi-sort their waste. And I'm sure government will play its own part in ensuring that its policies are enacted and they are meant to help the people, help our environment, and ensure that we have a very healthy environment. Yeah.
Sir, would you agree that there is lack of awareness amongst the general populace on the issue of poor solid waste management practices?
I agree with you 100%. If you are listening to me, I said advocacy is necessary. We need to teach our people. And I think that is where we can say government needs to come in. Let us strongly and aggressively advocate a change of attitude, a behavioral change in the way we handle solid waste. It must start from the households. Our researches have shown that we must semi-sort our waste from homes. It makes it easier and cheaper. I'm telling you, the business of solid waste management is huge, and it can even employ a whole lot of people if we organize it properly. So a whole lot of work can be done, and I'm sure that if we take it seriously, if we advocate the way we should advocate, from the grassroots to the households to communities and the rest of it, we'll be able to achieve the results we wish to achieve.
So, talking about awareness, what is the Institute doing, or what is being done by the Institute to create awareness amongst Nigerians about solid waste management practices?
Okay, it's like you already have heard that we are having a waste management conference sometimes in April. It is part of our own efforts coming out from last year's theme to promote and advocate for changes in the society. So sometimes, I think April 22nd to April 20 to 22nd, the Institute will have been a national waste management system conference in Abuja. And at that time, we know we will further educate Nigerians and the general populace on how well we can better handle waste and how we can turn waste generation into viable economic activities.
As an expert, to what extent would you say technical capacity and culture for maintenance of the few existing waste management facilities in the country is the challenge?
Well, you mentioned the word cultural. There has been no canonical work on the way culture affects solid waste management. However, if you have studied Nigeria generally or you've traveled, you will see that there are different ways by which people handle waste management. People will tell you that at a point they used to say that Ibadan was the dirtiest city, which meant that the Ibadan people perhaps didn't care about waste, living with waste. Okay, so there are certain cultural aspects, and they will tell you that if you go to the southeast of Nigeria, especially in the Cross Rivers area, that those areas are very neat. Culturally, they believe that they are neat. Well, there has been no specific work to prove that, but we have this general observation that culturally, some groups are neater than the others. But then I'm waiting for the first work to show that that actually exists. Now, for the infrastructure we have for waste handling, the infrastructure you put in place always have to do with the sophistication of the people you are working with, and of course with the urban nature.
Now, do you think Nigeria lacks comprehensive and reliable data for adequate solid waste management?
Well, I've not studied Nigeria as a whole, but I can say that Lagos, for example, carried out studies, and we know the total tonnage generated every month. For other states in Nigeria, I do not know whether any one of them has actually done comprehensive studies on their waste. Now, until all states can give us their data, we cannot say this is the national figure. What we can do as a nation is that the Federal Ministry of Environment can fund states that do not think waste is their problem to actually try and measure the quantity of waste that is generated from their different areas. And with that, we can have a more reliable national figure and plan for those national figures. But as it is, I think from what I have seen, or from what I'm exposed to, only a few states have actually carried out studies to determine their nationally, statewide waste generation capacities.
Okay. Some may argue that there is very limited private sector investment into solid waste management in Nigeria. Now, please can you tell us why the private sector should invest more into solid waste management?
Well, certainly, I've always said government cannot do everything. Government should enable the environment for private sector participants because one, it generates the job for people. It keeps enterprise alive. And of course, government cannot, there are a few things that government cannot by itself handle properly. They are better given to the private sector, and waste management is part of it. If we we enable the environment for private sector participants, I'm very sure they will more than fill the gap. I personally do not believe that government should overinvest itself in waste collection and gathering. The government can at a large scale invest in landfill sites, which is more difficult because you need a whole lot of land. It's only government that acquire that kind of land for processing of waste from the landfill sites. And Lagos, again, has shown the example. The landfill sites are managed by the state government. The private sector operators just bring their waste there, and it's the waste are taken off them. And I also know that because some of the landfill sites have been there for so long, they also can be able to generate gas. And I'm sure Lagos will also give gas gathering to private sectors to extract gas from the waste that have been lying in the landfill site for a long time. So it's categorization. At this level, let private sector play. At another level, let government play. And the symbiotic relationship will make us have a well-fitted and integrated waste handling system.
Okay. Lack of cost recovery mechanism for waste management services is discouraging private sector and individuals. What is your stand on this?
Now, you talk of cost recovery. Private sector is not into cost recovery. Basically, they are into profit making. It is government that engages in cost recovery. And we are saying that government over time has not done enough in terms of recovering costs. That's why we are encouraging government to let private sector play. If you encourage private sector participation at the level of gathering and transportation of waste, they will not only cover their costs, they will make profit, which is good for everybody. And they can do it more efficiently because when you seek after profit, you must it goes with efficiency and effectiveness. So once they are efficient, once they are effective, they will make profit from their enterprise. Then government can now engage in cost recovery at the landfill site. So at the end of the day, we have a neutral cost position for government in terms of waste. Organize and recover costs at the landfill site. Then private sector gather, transport, make your little profit, and then let's keep the environment clean. I'm sure everybody is willing to pay a little money for your waste to be carried for you.
Now, Prof, would you say solid waste management policy lacks political will?
Well, government has shown will. They set up FEPA, they changed FEPA to next year, they've shown will. A whole lot of states have waste management companies. So I don't believe that they don't have the will. When I mentioned the other time that compliance has been a bit low, it is because when people are in business, the first thing is they want to make profit. And businesses consider any cost as a form of tax. And of course, there will be pushbacks. Yes, if they can pollute the environment and they make profit, they don't mind. So it's not that there is no will. Government sometimes will just be a little bit patient so that the businesses do not complain. Businesses do not complain that they are being choked by taxes, because if government is going to carry your waste, the government is going to carry your waste. Certainly, you have to pay. But the individuals, the companies, the businesses, they see this as a form of taxation, and they see it as a pushback. So the matter of government not having the will is not really exact. It's just like sometimes government gives some breathing space to allow businesses to stand on their feet before they push for full compliance along the lines of waste generation.
We hope to bring you the concluding part of this conversation in our next episode. Do join us then.
It's new, it's fresh, it's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV channel 419, GoTV channel 26, Star Times channels 101 and 433, and Free TV channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us.
Is a problem in so many societies, and the whole idea of the pollution is you find societies where people are a little bit reckless with their hygiene behaviors. So some tend to dispose of their waste, they dispose it in places where it's not ideal. So pollution now comes from where over time there's this accumulation of this waste, and it becomes very, very unfit, causes health problems. So pollution in our country, we have places where there's this disorganization of waste disposal. So it has caused so many harm, in the society. So it's a very good thing that we take measures and the government begin to bring policies to clean up the environment.
Pollution is really is not too healthy in terms of health. It affects the populace and the environment itself. Sometimes because of the negligence we have in terms of not managing our waste properly, the environment takes effect on us too. Because when you have people dumping refuse within the drainage, it tends to have floods tends to come in. So I feel the government needs to take a very stand on those people that are pouring their debt or their waste within the drainage and littering the whole road network. It's really not good. So what I feel the government should do regarding that, they should bring in a good a good network waste management team that will come and help us manage our waste.
Way people dispose used materials, you understand, such as leather. You know, leather doesn't decompose easily like paper and other materials like that. So improper disposal of debts can cause pollution. And you know, as we know, there are a lot of pollution. So I don't know which one precisely are we talking about in environmental.
It has eaten up deeply to the human health. It causes a lot of havoc to human health in the society. You know, environmental pollution is caused by several factors. The majorly human factor, we are a problem to the pollution we face in the society. You know, ranging from even from our environment, immediate environment, the homes, and far from the homes, we have a lot of pollution that we cause. The waste, we improper disposal of the waste materials has caused a lot of havoc to us, a lot of hazards to us, and then even the burning, a lot of waste. Instead of us to find a proper way of disposing it, we rather put fire on it, and the smoke that goes up is hazardous to human health. It's cancerous to human health. you know a lot of issues from that. That is from burning of the fire. You just dispose the waste you use in your homes. Let's say you use fruit, for instance. You peel your orange, your banana, your pineapple and the rest, and then you just package it without proper. You just dump it by the roadside. These things are they attract a lot of especially flies, where they begin to fix on it, and then you begin to perceive smells. It's not good to human health.
Areas, you will see them disposing dirt inside gutter, which is not supposed to be so. If you dispose a lot of dirt in the gutter, you notice that there will be a lot of jam pack, which doesn't make water pass. So through that, it causes flood and other natural hazard like that. Yes.
I see most of the societies, when you go online, you see civilized societies. Most of where most of when they recycle the waste, it's just a process of cleaning the excess waste in the societies and recycling it to make sure that they also bring out some profitable things from the waste. So recycling is it's one of the key ways of ensuring that the society is clean from pollution.
Follow your dream with passion. Be determined. Leave the rest to God.
It's new, it's fresh, it's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV channel 419, GoTV channel 26, Star Times channels 101 and 433, and Free TV channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us.
You're welcome to this segment, Alumni Chat. Today I have a very big fish. He used to be a directing staff and also former director of studies. I'm talking about Professor Nasiruddin Usman MNI. Thank you for joining us on Alumni Chat.
Thank you very much for having me.
I know you have a whole lot to tell us, but first of all, when you were at the National Institute, what was the experience like?
I think NIPSS has become part of me. I was a participant in 2011. I belong to Sec 33, and it was a very, very good rewarding experience. I've been in the academics almost all my working career, but when I went to NIPSS, it was completely a different kettle of fish. But I really enjoyed myself, and I was quite active in that sec. In fact, I was the Rapporteur General of that sec. So it was quite a rewarding experience, particularly with my classmates coming from across various backgrounds in this country. And we still maintain a very closely knitted relationship. So it was quite a rewarding experience. I now went back to give back in 2015 as a member of directing staff.
Okay, let me stop you there. What were the circumstances that led to you coming back to the National Institute as a directing staff and also director of studies?
One would say providence, but the then Director General Professor Muhammad Tijani Bande, who is now our ambassador to the United Nations, he literally poached me. I'm a lawyer by background, and he convinced me that there is need to have a lawyer among members of directing staff because law and policy are intricately connected. So you can't talk of policy without the legal framework to back up the policy or to drive the policy. So as it were, I was Deputy Director General with Nigeria Law School at that time. And I first went there on sabbatical. And since then, they never let me go. I had to spend some 7 years, 5 years as a member of directing staff and 2 years as acting director of studies before I finally left in February 2002. But I think my engagement with NIPSS is not limited to the institute itself. As God will have it, I was the Secretary General of Alumni Association of the National Institute for a very good 4 years. So I graduate them from NIPSS. I take them over under the umbrella of the Alumni Association to continue the grooming process. So by and large, I think it was a very, very rewarding experience for me.
Wonderful. Now, how has the experience of being an MNI impacted on your person and your career?
A lot. You see, I think what we are missing in this country is a scientific way of leadership recruitment process. People should not just find themselves in position of leadership without having to go through some training processes. It happens in so many countries. You can't be in a very serious leadership position. You have to be well groomed and well prepared for it. NIPSS provide that environment. For those of us who were there at relatively younger age, it was quite rewarding for us and for the institutions we worked for. But unfortunately, I think the country is not taking NIPSS with the level of seriousness that it deserves. Nobody should be allowed to reach a certain position of leadership without going through leadership processes, training at NIPSS, because it widens your scope, it changes your line of thinking, it makes you very scientific in your approach to issues. So I think, like I've said, I've worked largely in the academics throughout my working career. I was a lecturer at Federal University, I was at the Nigerian Law School, I was at NIPSS. Now I'm Deputy Vice Chancellor in a private university. So I think I've found the knowledge and skills and experiences I had in NIPSS very, very handy, and it has helped me tremendously, not only me as a person, but the institutions I worked with.
That's wonderful. So tell us, what is your philosophy of life?
Give back to the society. Some of us in this country, we are fortunate to have had it almost all. Using public resources. Now, I think the essence of you being a human being, and a privileged human being, and in Nigeria for that matter, is you must think of what you give back to the society, particularly the younger and coming up generation. We found ourselves in a very critical situation in this country today. A lot of things are not going well. The economy is down. The security needs to be tuned up. So whatever we can do as individuals to make sure that we have contributed in righting the wrongs in society, I think this should be not only my philosophy, but the philosophy of every right-thinking, privileged Nigerian.
How would you react to the narrative that Annie is an elitist group?
It depends on the way you look at it. If I'm looking at Annie being an elitist group from the negative side, every society will have a crop of people that derive that society. Now, if Annie is shouldered with that responsibility as quote-unquote an elite group, I think we can use it positively. So long as we did not use our elitism to just fend for ourselves and, suck the society, I think it's a good thing. I have participated actively while I was in the leadership of Annie in a number of projects that has helped the society in the health sector and educational sector. And I think this should be the focus of Annie. So being an elite group in itself is not bad. But being elite in terms of being self-centered or, being myopic, that is not good enough.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it on this segment. The program continues. Stay with us. I am Lydia Odidiochi.
It's new, it's fresh, it's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV Channel 419, GoTV Channel 26, Star Times Channels 101 and 433, and Free TV Channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Keep watching NIPSS Policy TV.
Closing. In Nigeria, solid waste management is a challenge that must be tackled headlong. According to our expert, it must not be seen as a problem, but an avenue or a means to an end. How, may I ask? How can we develop an integrated waste management system? How do we ensure proper management of hazardous wastes? Or even achieve complete waste minimization through reuse and recycling in Nigeria? We will end this episode with these pertinent questions. The answers will be provided in our next episode. Don't forget to join us then. I am Lydia Odidiochi. See you next time.